The air was thick with the scent of gunpowder and sweat. It clung to the very details of the battlefield like a shroud, permeating every crevice of the soldiers' uniforms. The distant rumble of cannon fire resonated like thunder through the land, vibrating underfoot as men shouted orders, their voices hoarse with exertion and fear. This was December 14, 1799, a day that would mark not just the end of a life, but the conclusion of an era. As George Washington lay on his deathbed at Mount Vernon, the room was filled with an anxious hush, punctuated only by the crackling of the fire and the soft rustle of fabric as the doctor leaned in closer. The taste of blood lingered on his tongue, a metallic reminder of the days spent leading men into the fray, a life spent amidst the din of war. The smell of cedar and fresh linen mixed with the bitter scent of illness, creating an atmosphere that felt both sacred and sorrowful. "Doctor," Washington rasped, his voice weak but resolute, "I die hard, but I am not afraid to go." His breaths came shallow, labored, yet each word held the weight of history. The room was dimly lit, shadows danced across the walls, reflecting the flickering firelight, while outside, the winter wind howled, carrying with it the chill of loss. The air grew colder as the sun began to set, a final farewell from a man who stood tall in the hearts of many. "I have fought for this country with every ounce of my being," he murmured, "and I can now see it shines brighter than I ever dreamed." With one final breath, the legendary leader closed his eyes, the room falling into a profound silence. Outside, the last leaves of autumn rustled in the trees, whispering a sorrowful goodbye to a giant of humanity, the revolutionary leader, the father of his country. Born on February 22, 1732, in Westmoreland County, Virginia, George Washington grew up in a world that was unforgiving and often harsh. The scent of damp earth filled his childhood home, a modest plantation, where the sounds of livestock echoed through the air, mingling with the muffled cries of enslaved people laboring in the fields. The heavy humidity of the Virginia summers weighed down the air, creating an oppressive atmosphere, reflecting the struggles faced by his family. At the age of 11, Washington's life took a fateful turn when his father passed away, leaving him responsible for the family estate. The loss was a cold, visceral ache, one that he carried as a heavy burden, establishing early in him a sense of duty that would define his future. "A man's character is made not by his circumstances, but by how he responds to them," he would later reflect, though in those early days, the weight of loss seemed insurmountable. The sharp crack of a whip could often be heard in the distance, a cruel reminder of the harsh realities of plantation life. Washington was not only grappling with the loss of his father, he was witnessing the suffering around him, the constant reminder of human struggles that left an indelible mark on his conscience. After years of toil and navigating the treacherous waters of colonial politics, George's first significant failure came in 1754 when he was sent to the Ohio Valley as a young officer in the Virginia militia. Enveloped by the scent of wet, loamy earth and gunpowder, he faced the French forces only to find himself outnumbered and outmaneuvered. The air was thick with tension and fear, the sounds of distant gunfire echoing through the trees, creating a cacophony of chaos. "Retreat! We must fall back," he exclaimed, his voice barely carrying over the noise. The bitter taste of defeat hung in the air, and every soldier's face reflected a mix of fear and disappointment. As they withdrew into the cover of the forest, Washington's heart sank. He felt the crushing weight of failure bearing down upon him. "Perhaps I am not cut out for this life," he thought. The feeling of insignificance gnawed at him like a relentless itch. It was a moment that nearly broke his spirit, a time when he teetered on the brink of surrender. The oppressive weight of loss and defeat threatened to consume him, but deep down, a flicker of determination began to ignite. The turning point came during the harsh winter of 1776 at the Battle of Trenton, a pivotal moment in the Revolutionary War that would redefine Washington's leadership and tactical prowess. The air was frigid, biting at the skin as Washington devised a daring plan to cross the icy Delaware River. The night was cloaked in darkness, and the bitter cold infiltrated every fiber of the soldiers' uniforms, their breath visible in the stillness of the air. With the river swollen and treacherous, Washington gathered his troops. "This is not merely a fight for land," he urged, his voice resolute, "but for our very lives and the future of our children. We will take them by surprise." The sounds of ice cracking beneath boats and the splashing of oars cut through the night as they began their perilous crossing. The men shivered, their teeth chattering in the relentless cold, yet their spirits surged with a newfound purpose. The scent of wood smoke blended with the chilling air, creating a sense of urgency. Upon reaching the New Jersey shore, the army pressed forward with determination. Washington's strategy was bold and audacious. He planned to attack the Hessians at dawn, capitalizing on their complacency. "No one expects us to strike now," he muttered to himself, a fierce glint in his eyes as they donned their snow-covered uniforms like a second skin. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, orange and pink hues fighting against the dark sky, the soldiers marched forward, the crunch of snow underfoot replaced by the sounds of gunfire and battle cries. That day, the surprise attack led to a resounding victory, turning the tide of the war and cementing Washington's reputation as a brilliant military strategist. The stakes reached a fever pitch during the siege of Yorktown in 1781, where the very fate of a nation hung in the balance. The air was thick with the smell of gunpowder and the fear of imminent death as Washington orchestrated the final assault against the British forces. The sound of distant cannons reverberated through the air, mixing with the cries of soldiers charging into battle, each heartbeat echoing like a war drum. As Washington surveyed the battlefield, the landscape was a tapestry of chaos. Redcoats lined the earthworks, their uniforms bright against the muted colors of the autumn leaves, while his own men advanced with a determination that defied the fear of failure. Today, we fight not as individuals, but as a united force for liberty. Washington called out, his voice cutting through the din, rallying his men with fervor. The fighting raged on. The crack of rifles and the sharp sounds of swords clashing filled the air. The pungent aroma of smoke and sweat was a constant reminder of the struggle. Washington, mounted on his horse, felt the heat of battle surge through him, a palpable thrill coursing with every command he issued. Hours turned into a relentless struggle, yet Washington remained resolute. The landscape was littered with the aftermath of conflict, broken ground, fallen comrades, and the cacophony of survival. The climactic moment came when British General Cornwallis, overwhelmed and exhausted, finally surrendered. Washington stood tall, a whirlwind of emotions surging within him, victory, relief, and an overwhelming sense of hope for the future of a nation he had fought so hard to create. As the years rolled on, Washington faced betrayal not from external foes but from those within his own ranks. The political landscape was changing rapidly, and the ideals he fought for began to fracture. The scent of contempt began to fill the air, mingling with the heady perfume of power. Alexander Hamilton, once an ally, found himself at odds with Thomas Jefferson, breeding a rift that left Washington feeling isolated. "The unity of our nation is fragile," he lamented to a close friend, "and it is those who once stood beside me who now wield knives in the dark." The tension culminated in the formation of political factions that threatened to undermine everything he had worked for. "If we do not stick together, we will lose it all," he warned in his farewell address, a palpable urgency in his tone. "Let us not become enemies, let us remain friends for the greater good." Yet, as the tides of politics shifted, his words seemed to fall on deaf ears. The betrayal of ideals felt like a dagger to his heart, the very fabric of his vision for America unraveling. As George Washington's legacy solidified, he became a symbol of unity amidst division, sacrifice amidst betrayal, and hope against despair. Human nature is so prone to self-interest, he reflected towards the end of his life, and our greatest challenge is keeping that at bay for the sake of our fellow man. The legacy he crafted was not merely about freedom from oppression but about the continuous struggle for justice, equality, and unity. The crisp autumn air of the new nation held the promise of a bright future, yet Washington knew that it would take vigilance and courage from each generation. As we remember George Washington, we are reminded of the immense weight of leadership, the struggles that shape us, and the power of unity in the face of adversity. His voice, though silent now, calls out to each of us to uphold the values that he fought for, a legacy that will resonate long beyond the touch of his hand or the sound of his voice. In the end, Washington was not just a man, he was an idea, one that continues to inspire and challenge.